And
good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, it is recording. We're NOFC Podcast here, episode number 20. We have the episode is going to be called Fully Involved, a Career Forged in Fire. Our guest is a 27-year veteran lieutenant with the Poughkeepsie Fire Department. His name is no other than Jimmy Brugger. Carm, once again, you brought this guest on, so please do your own introduction if you don't mind.
Yeah, so welcome, Jimmy. Jimmy is the husband of a former coworker of mine. His wife, Mindy Brueger, is a good friend of mine. Jimmy's become a good friend over the past year or so, I say, right, Jimmy? We first started hanging out together. Yep. Come to learn about your story, a very interesting story, a very storied career as a state fire instructor, a local Ulster County instructor, and 27 years of firefighting experience. And before I have you do your introduction, I'm just going to say that this podcast matters to me because my mom's dad, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather was a member of the FDNY in Brooklyn, and died in the 60s before I was born. And, something that's near and dear to my heart. I respect the shit out of what you guys do. So I just wanted to say that, lay the groundwork. Jimmy, if you would, give us an introduction. Tell us about you. Tell us about all those initials that you have in the description that we put down and what they mean. And tell us about your career and times.
Sure. So, Jimmy Brugger, I recently retired from the city of Poughkeepsie Fire Department after 27 and a half years on the job there. Also work as a New York State fire instructor with the Office of Fire Prevention and Control. Been doing that like 15 years, and I'm also a county fire instructor with Ulster County. So sometimes my my state teaching takes me way out of the county area. I'm typically assigned to Ulster County, but because I do some specialized classes, I do end up traveling around the state as well. To reach out those classes to other instructors. So I do a lot of train-to-trainer stuff. It's very rewarding. The career is very rewarding. I do miss the job a little bit sometimes. You know how it goes. But we definitely had some good times. It was a brotherhood, as you guys all know how that goes. There's always some knuckleheads, but there's also a lot of good guys too. And I do miss it.
Absolutely. Before we talk about firefighting, I got to ask you, and this is going to be an interesting addition because of the camaraderie and the back and forth between firefighters. I'm going to ask you this. Do you know why everyone loves firefighters?
Because they're not cops? I don't know.
Because they put out.
You're
we don't carry guns.
You're so corny.
Well,
you
know
are
what they
fucking
say.
Corny.
You know what they say, Carm? We find them hot and leave them wet. So.
And that's how you start a podcast.
Yes, that is how you start. Yeah, that is how you start it.
Why don't we provide a little context as well? Let's discuss the comedic rivalry between cops and firemen. Tell us what your thoughts are about that, because everybody everywhere between the cops and the firemen, there's this rivalry, which is ultimately pretty funny in my opinion, because you do the same job in many respects. You go into danger and you make it not dangerous. So tell us what your thoughts are.
So, my thoughts are, first of all, I would like to say I have the utmost respect for you guys and what you did in your careers. And, my 27 and a half year career dealing with the city of Poughkeepsie Police Department, all those years, we always, teased each other quite a bit, of course, but we were always there for each other. They had a line of duty death, back in, I believe it was 2001 or two. And then we had a line of duty death in 2015. And, both times it really stand up organization, stand up people, right after our incident happened, we had patrol cars pulling into the station, dropping off food, dropping off refreshments. It was just amazing. Carm, I think I told you too that my brother was a police officer. He retired from the Raleigh Police Department as a captain, and through his whole career and my whole career, he also did 27 years. And through the whole time, we were always ribbing each other constantly about it. But but working together, is really was really the key thing. And I think we did all that a lot on my job. There was no, other departments not so much, but I'm glad that didn't happen with my department. We always got along good with law enforcement.
So, Jimmy, quick question for you. Well, it's going to be a bunch of them, but one of my questions as you're talking is, especially since you had a brother that was in law enforcement, did you always want to be a fireman? Did you want to be a cop and then turn to fireman? Like, what was your backstory as a child? What you want to do?
It's funny you asked that, Jay, because I originally wanted to be a police officer. When I was a teenager, I grew up in Putnam County, New York, and they had a sheriff's cadet program, and I was in that for about 5 years. And I just loved it, and I loved it. I saw the good and the bad, and then, I don't know, I went away to college and kind of got away from all of that stuff. And then kind of went on to have a short career for Texaco, and then I was an IBMer. And then what happened to me is the big layoffs in the early 90s in IBM. And I swore that corporate America would never do that to me again. And that's when I made a promise to myself to get on the job somewhere. And, I decided at that time, because I had been a volunteer, that I wanted to be, a firefighter.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. So how long were you a volunteer before you actually became active, like full-time with the city of Poughkeepsie?
So I was a volunteer for approximately 10 years in Plattekill, New York.
Okay.
Then I got on the job in 97 with the city of Poughkeepsie Fire Department. So I was there, as a volunteer. Obviously, it's volunteers, so they need everybody they can get. So when I joined, I think I became an officer after like less than a year there, and then just progressed through the ranks. And I was actually the volunteer chief for 8 years while I was there. Once I got on the job, that kind of slacked off a little bit. And as you can well know, working a lot of shifts, a lot of overtime stuff, and I still came around there, but not as often, and kind of concentrate on the career job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about your experiences, if you don't mind, about some of the firefighting experiences, about your average day. What does the average day of a firefighter consist of for a paid firefighter? What's your rotation?
So we normally we come in the morning. Our shifts were 7 to 7, so we did a 24-hour shift, and we were off for 3 days. So we did 124, and then we were off for 72 and 24. So basically works out to 8 shifts a month, roughly, give or take. And that's not counting overtime. So, it was a pretty good schedule, except when it falls on a weekend, of course. But, I did it for many years. So I like the schedule. Coming in the morning at 7 o'clock, I always, I was an officer, so I always try to get there early to find out, hey, what's the debriefing? Anything happened last shift? Anything I should know about? Everything okay with the apparatus? Does anything else going on I should know about in the city? Sort of like when you guys do your lineup, in the morning. And and then once I got the lowdown on that, then it was kind of like, hand it off. I'd sign the book and sign my guys in too, whoever was working with me. We do a apparatus check. First thing we check out the apparatus, make sure, does it need fuel? Does it hold water? Is all the equipment on? Is anything broken? Anything missing? Go over anything. Do we need to make a trip to DPW? Do we have to go for fuel? Things like that. Then we would have breakfast. Then after breakfast, training was usually around 10 o'clock. The department-wide training, we'd go to headquarters and do department-wide training, usually 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, hour or 2 hours, however long that took. Sometimes if there was a lot of calls going on and we couldn't do training, that would get delayed till the afternoon. Sometimes, once in a while, it did get canceled if we were just running a lot of calls and we just couldn't get it done. Obviously we're there to serve the public. So, training's a big thing too, but we gotta do the job as well.
So Jimmy, on a normal day, would they have overly manpower, but like would they put extra guys on just in case, so people had so there's kind of like some flexibility within the shift, or whoever was on was active for the whole entire shift?
So guys were more than willing to, or more than able to take partial shifts off if they wanted to, but you have a certain roster of people. So we had a 14-man minimum manning for all three stations. We have probably 16 guys in our group. So the two guys who were extra were floaters, and they just filled in wherever. If it exceeded the amount of people off that we had, then they would have to go to the overtime book and call overtime. And that would, for the day shift, they would call the night before for the upcoming. So our shifts were broken actually up into two 12-hour shifts as far as overtime goes. So you got 7 to 7 daytime and 7 to 7 at night. If somebody took off a whole 24-hour shift, that would actually constitute 2 jobs, which was good for the guys because it broke it up. So somebody wasn't grabbing all the overtime, and then they would call for the night shift at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to fill the night shift. So, I mean, some of the other things that we did that weren't including, responding to emergency calls, we did hydrant testing. We test every single hydrant in the city. We do a flow test on them. Obviously we have a marine unit too. We make sure that was good. We go down and make sure that the boat gets checked and it's operable and nothing's wrong with it. Stuff like that.
What I noticed the other day, which I never realized, I was at the gym the other day, and I live in Middletown. The city of Middletown police came into the Planet Fitness, and it looked as if they were checking all the fire extinguishers and the fire alarms. Is that a normal thing, especially for a new business, or do they do that on a regular basis for like every 6 months or once a year? Do they have to do that for certain businesses?
So, City of Middletown Fire?
City of Middletown Fire, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Fire. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. I kind of figured that's what he was talking about. Yes. So if your fire department has an inspection bureau attached to it, which ours did too, we have a lieutenant and a firefighter that's assigned to our inspection bureau. Yes, that's part for so that's considered a public assembly. They would come in and they would check everything yearly to make sure everything was up to snuff. So, and that was another division of a fire department that we did. I wasn't in it, but other guys were.
So with your shifts being where they are, I believe you said there's 8 shifts per month, correct?
It works out to approximately 8 shifts per month, right?
So obviously that allows a significant amount of free time. In your opinion, did a lot of firefighters or have secondary jobs or like side hustles or stuff like that?
I would say pretty much 98% of the guys had a second job or a business. A lot of guys have landscaping businesses. There's a bunch of guys that do construction on the side. And the best thing about that is they were able to pick, some of the younger guys that came on the job, to help them out. So, with them doing their own jobs, they kind of spread it around a little bit for other guys that could help them out. Yeah, but we all did, second jobs. My thing was teaching, obviously. But a lot of guys, did a lot of other things. And the one good thing about that is if you ever had a problem with your house, there was always somebody on the job that could come help you out. You know what I mean? There was always somebody there that would, I had a plumbing issue one day and my captain, I called him up, told him what was going on. He got in his truck and came right over, and that was, I'll never forget that. And, it helped me out a lot. So,
that's awesome. Hey, Carm, you know what I'm thinking about?
I can only imagine what you're thinking about, Jay.
I should have been a fucking fireman. Jesus Christ. sounds like a fucking awesome career. No, it's cool. So what do you think if you had to describe like your oh shit moments, what got you guys like when you got a hot call, you're like, oh fuck, like this is going to be a bad one. Like what was those, like house fires, structure fires? Obviously are probably pretty stressful. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the structure fires, especially when they dispatch it out and you hear the phone behind the dispatcher ringing off the hook for multiple calls, and then they get back on the radio and say, they confirm, hey, we're getting multiple calls, or a lot of times, they got 5 patrols out there. A lot of times the PD does, and they'll get on the scene first, and they'll say, "We have an officer on the scene. You got fire blowing out the second floor window." So that kind of steps you up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about like the most intense part of the calls that you've gotten and what you think were the hardest for you to take.
So one of the worst fires I remember being at, we call it the Taylor Avenue fire. It was January 1st of 2001. It was, I believe it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. We got dispatched for a structure fire. We got there and there was fire blowing out the front door of the building already. There was multiple people injured laying on the sidewalk or the side of the building that had jumped from second and third story windows to escape it. And our first due engine pulled up with 500 gallons of water, expended their tank. And I was actually the guy, I was actually working, I was filling in on a ladder truck that day. I got off the ladder truck, and usually we go right to roof operations, but the captain in charge turned around and looked at me and says, "Jim, I need you to hit that hydrant right now. They need water." I was like, "Okay, Cap." So I went over and grabbed the hydrant wrench, put it on there, and I couldn't budge. I wouldn't budge one bit. I grabbed somebody from the ambulance that was there, happened to be walking by. I just grabbed him. I said, "Hey, can you help me with this?" So we ended up putting a breaker bar on it from the truck. We both with it, and we ended up snapping a nut right off the top of the hydrant. So that was it. Consequently, we found out that all the hydrants on that street were frozen down below, and they would not open. So we ultimately, that house ultimately burned down, as well as the house next door, and there was 5 people that died in that fire. And we were there well over probably 14, 15 hours. Between, the fire, putting the fire out, we finally got water. They had to run the line, probably, damn near about a mile away. Just had to put source intermediate pumpers in. And, we were there for a long time. That was really my first bad fire there. And that really took its toll on me for a while, thinking about what happened and what could have been. So I also, once I broke the hydrant, Carmen, I don't think I told you this the other day, but the captain ordered me to go into the other house that was on fire, that was just starting to get on fire, to the 3rd floor. Me and my partner who was working with me, we entered the 3rd floor. We got no further than like 10 feet in front of the door. He ran up to the landing, intermediate landing between the 2nd and 3rd floor, and started screaming at us, "Get the fuck out of here. I want you guys to get," and it's like, "Cap, we just made it. I want you guys out of here now." Okay. We backed out. I went down the stairs. We came out, took our masks off, and turned around. And the landing on the 3rd floor we were just at, there was already fire blowing out of it. So that was a really close call for us that day. The fire had gotten into the eaves of the building, and we didn't know it. We didn't see it, but he did, and he pulled us out of there just in time. So
that's a good captain right there. Jesus.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, Jimmy, earlier you said, your one tanker had 500 gallons. Like, is there an average that a normal structure fire takes as far as gallons to put it out, or it depends on how involved it is, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it really, kind of depends on, we've had a lot of one-room burnouts where, you probably don't use much more than a tank of water. We always hit the hydrant, though. We always hit the hydrant if it's a structure fire. And if it's a larger fire, you might be there for a while. So, most of our city engines only have 500 gallons of water on them. You get outside of a hydrant area, my volunteer department, the engines are carrying, 1,000, 1,200 gallons, and they're also backing it up with a, 3,000 gallon tanker because we don't have hydrants, and getting water on it right away makes a big difference.
And if you would explain, so most people don't know, but anytime you have a call like that where there's a fire and there's a death, whether it be accidental, intentional, in terms of homicide, suicide, whatever, the police end up getting involved as well, and you work in conjunction with the police. The arson investigator may or may not be attached to the police department, depending on where you are and what jurisdiction. Explain the fire department responsibilities during a fatal fire of what you folks are tasked with doing at that time after you extinguish it.
Right. So basically, any fire, New York State law says the fire chief is responsible for finding the cause of the fire. We have a fire investigation team in the city of Poughkeepsie. It's also joint with the police department, especially it'll be more intense if there is a fatality involved. So we work jointly with them. If there's any evidence that's got to be taken in, they're the ones that do it. We'll can it, we'll bag it for them. The whole chain of custody thing, we'll turn it over to them, and they'll take it to their evidence locker and take it into evidence. As far as interviews go, we usually do a joint interview. Like, if I was going to go interview Mr. Smith about, what happened to your car, that your brand new car that just burned up, we always brought a police officer with us. Not to intimidate, but just to try to, maybe ask questions that I didn't think of. And that's always a good thing to have more than one person on there. And, then their training level really, as far as fire investigations, was the same as ours, so.
Yeah, which is that you actually just made the natural bridge into my next question. That the average person has no idea what an arson investigator is tasked with doing, and the training, without getting into specifics about the training of how they figure out what they do. Briefly describe what an arson investigator does and how they do what they do.
So obviously, once the fire's out, we kind of like ask them, obviously we have to do overhaul, but we try to ask them, don't disturb any evidence on, you can finish your overhaul, salvage an overhaul after we kind of look over the scene and see what's going on. We always like to start on the outside, do an outside perimeter, look around for anything suspicious, which is always a good thing. We've always sometimes find gas cans or bottles outside that obviously, had some type of accelerant in it. And, that's got to be taken into evidence. We with the help of the PD, we'll canvass neighborhoods, for footage for any type of video they have. Everybody's got cameras now. We've had numerous fires where the neighbors, ring cameras and stuff had really helped us out as to what happened before the fire really started. Then we'll work our way in to the area of where it's most burned, and we'll go to the area where it's most heavily charred first, where we think it might have started. And try to work our way out from that and try to make a determination, what was here at the time of the fire. We want to talk to the occupants. We want to talk to witnesses. We want to talk to the first arriving firefighters. We want to talk to the first arriving police unit that was there, if they were there before the fire department. Occupants are usually a great help. They'll tell you, hey, hey, I had a heater there because, the heat wasn't working too good. So I had a space heater there. And, maybe that got moved outside because they were doing overhaul and you don't realize it. But once you start reconstructing and putting everything back in the place where it was, things kind of make sense. And, then we work out from there. We check the electric. We'll go down and look at the electrical panel. We'll take a picture of it. We always make sure we tell the new guys, if you're told to go down and shut the breakers off, just shut the main off. Don't sit there and toggle them all off. We want to see the ones that are actually, tripped, so we can take a picture of it and make sense of it. We want to check to see what kind of heating they have, what kind of construction it is, what type of heat they have, what do they use it for fuel? Did they have a fireplace? Things like that. And, usually most of the time it all comes together and it figures out. So talking about that car, I got to tell you a story about one of the interesting investigations that I thought was going to be a pain, but once I started interviewing people, it ended up working out. So we had got called for a structure fire one day. It was on the second floor. We get there, we got fire blowing out the kitchen in the back of the building. So end up putting the fire out, and they had taken the refrigerator and the table and everything and put it on the back porch already. The crew did. And so I'm looking at it, and it's just not making any sense to me. I'm looking at the fire pattern. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. And then so I went and talked to the young girl who was in the apartment with her mother. They were taking a nap in the bedroom. It was in the afternoon. I said, well, can you tell me what happened, honey? She goes, sure. She goes, I told my mom I was hungry, and I went to the refrigerator to get something to eat. And I opened the refrigerator door, and the food was on fire. So I closed the refrigerator door. I went back and told my mother the refrigerator inside the refrigerator was on fire, and she didn't believe me. And she came out, opened the refrigerator door, and everything was on fire, and she left the refrigerator door open and exited the apartment and called 911. So henceforth, by the time we got there, the whole kitchen and surrounding areas was going pretty good. But they had already dragged the refrigerator outside, which she told me that, I went and looked at the refrigerator and it all made sense. I made him drag it back inside and put it back where it was, and everything kind of fit together. So,
What the hell caused a fire inside a refrigerator?
so a lot of times the frost-free refrigerators, right, they actually have heating coils in them. And what happens is the frost-free refrigerators, the heating coils, they'll go on a cycle to keep it frost-free. Well, sometimes that'll malfunction and the heating coils will never shut off. And that's what happens. It overheats the whole refrigerator. And so I saw that a couple of times in my career. So it's just really not that uncommon as you think it is.
See that? I'd never know that. Jay, would you have any idea about frost-free refrigerators?
Not a clue. Nope.
Not a fucking clue. That's
Not
crazy.
a fucking clue, exactly. Hey, so I don't know if you've been paying attention to law enforcement and the dynamics within supervisions and commanders and stuff like that. How specifically the state police, in our opinion, at least mine, they're kind of the supervisors are just like up top in like our Albany, like that oversee the whole state police. They seem to be, I don't know, how do you call it, Carm? They're just, their agenda has been altered, if you say, and we're kind of conforming to what society has brought us to. Have you noticed any of that shifts within the fire department, or do you think your leadership is kind of steadfast overall, or specifically in Poughkeepsie?
Let me interrupt. I call it social shenanigans.
We should call it that.
Are there social shenanigans in the fire department too?
So, I mean, obviously, in the last, I gotta say, the 5 to 6 years, we have to do sensitivity training and, discrimination training, and as well as everything else as well. But I can pretty much say, we gotta watch what we say and do. We had a meeting with the police department, and they just warned us too. They say, hey, we got body cams now, so just watch the conversations that are going on as you're talking to us. Don't be turning around and saying, calling people dumbasses and, they did this or they did that while my body cam is on, and we get it. But as far as the structure of our department, I could pretty much say, I was a lieutenant in my station, and unless my captain had to call me to have an assignment for me, he never really bothered me. He's like, I took care of my guys. It was my house. If I needed him for something, or if I needed his opinion about something, or if I had a problem with somebody and I wanted to let him know, then I would. But there was no micromanaging on his point whatsoever. I don't believe. So, that's why.
Good.
That's why it was, it was really kind of a good organization, I believe. The guys were trusted, and plus, it wasn't like I was a spring chicken either. I'd been on a job over 20 years. Everybody knew what I was doing, and then.
What are your thoughts about the lessening of the standards of the people who are coming on the job? Let's attack it at that angle. Some of the new firefighters, I've heard that the standards of the testing phases, especially for the FDNY, have changed and been lessened dramatically to accommodate different roles that are being recruited, such as different genders per se, that there's no longer a weight requirement for dragging a dummy, right? Tell us part of that.
So our guys usually get sent to the Westchester Fire Academy. So the Westchester Fire Academy is right next to the Westchester Police Academy. And, it's down there, I believe it's up to 22 weeks of rigorous training they have to do, but they still have to do a state certified CPAT test at the end. They usually do it 3 or 4 days before they graduate, and that standard is the same. And I think the dummy is still 150 pounds. Because that's run by the state, and I actually proctored that, as well. I've done it many times, but they have to, they have to get on a treadmill. I think it's 10 minutes. They have to do 10 minutes on a treadmill. Then they have to pull a hose. Then they have to hit an object until this buzzer goes off. They have to raise a ladder. They have to drag a dummy. They have to do a quick room search, and they have to do we have a push-pull simulator with weights on it. So they have to pull it down, simulating, salvaging a wall, and then they have to turn around and push it up on the other side. And they have to do that, I believe it's 5 times. So,
okay,
so that's the same for everybody. And, I have seen, the females tend to have a trouble with that because of their upper body. Dutchess County just gave the FPAT test, which is very similar to that. And I believe most of the ones that didn't didn't make it through that were female. So
So
Interesting.
it's so they don't, their standards are same for the females as they are for the males, or are they less
They're
for the
the same.
females?
they're the same.
See, that's different than us because the females have lesser standards. So I can almost understand why much less females are qualified in your profession as opposed to ours. Because I don't know if you're aware, but they kind of gauge the females based on, they lower the standards a little bit
It's
for them.
it's the Cooper standards,
Cooper
right?
standards,
Which are
yes.
established for a lot of civil service for police agencies across the nation. They have Cooper standards that decipher between men and women, but also decipher between age groups within the gender as well. Just to explain to the viewers that they're lessened standards based on the Cooper standards that are established under civil service.
So what is that? Is that basically lowering some of the physical agility standards? Is that what that
Yes,
does?
basically
Yeah,
it means like if you're a 20 to 25-year-old male, you're expected to run faster, do more push-ups, do more sit-ups within that time period than say a 35-year-old male. And accordingly, as a female, the testing standards under the Cooper standards are less than the male standards in every age group as well. So it's like a metered effect that goes down per the standard per gender. Yeah.
Gotcha. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, let me kind of turn the tables on you. I mean, it's like, my philosophy in the fire department is I want to make sure that whoever's sitting next to me or going in with me, if I get in trouble, has my back and can either get me out or get help to get me out. And you don't want the 300-pound person or the 120-pound person to be that person, you want them to be in shape,
Yeah, well, I can talk very strongly about that, and I have no problems. Without getting too crazy about it, like I hate it because it's simply because of what you state. If I'm working a night shift with Carm and something happens where, God forbid, we get into a fight and I sprain my ankle or something, or whatever, we're doing a foot pursuit and I sprain my ankle, like I know that Carm's going to at least be able to get me out of harm's way relatively easy. Now, will a 120-pound female be able to do that? I'm 220 pounds. I don't know because they don't test that. Yeah, I doubt it too. I know I worked with a bunch of females that are far exceed their physical standards, and I would definitely work with them, and I would definitely say that they could handle themselves. But yeah, whole and whole, to go collectively as a generalized statement, they're much weaker. It's just physically impossible for them to do the same thing as a in shape male.
Right.
Carm?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think, based on, without getting into the social fabric discussion of why this is important, I never cared about who was at my back or had my back as long as they could do the job. I was pretty lucky too. I worked with some great females on the job who were very capable of doing it. But granted, there are those who get on the job that can't do it, that can't, that were not as proficient, shall we say. And it bothered me as well, but I think it's well beyond our pay grade to decide who gets what at what time. It's that whole discussion of I don't even know what to call it at this point in time, but I was wondering, in terms of the core discussion about fire departments, is it the same situation? Are the standards being lessened in certain respects? And I guess it's good to hear that they're not,
Yeah, I mean, I personally know the staff down at Westchester Fire Training Center, and I've taught down there as well. And they have to walk. If they want to walk the walk, they got to. If they're going to talk the talk, they got to walk the walk. Period. And they don't. That's why usually they'll start with a certain number, and then by the time they get down towards the end, they're down 7, 8, 9 people. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you said you've been an instructor for 15 years?
So
right?
altogether, yeah. So I was a county instructor first. That was 20 years ago, and then I've been a state instructor for 15 years, and a county instructor as well. I got rehired as a county instructor back in February. They heard I was retiring, so they said, "Oh, give him more work to do, so we'll make him a county instructor too." So,
So do you have any goals or aspirations on how long you intend to do that for? Like, is there an end date to that? Or you're kind of just seeing how it goes?
Yeah, no, I mean, my wife's still working. You know, she's probably going to be working another, I don't know, 8 years, maybe 9 years, however long she wants to. And you know, as long as I'm healthy and I feel good, I still like doing the fire stuff. You know, it's fun, it's rewarding. We just ran a summer class in Ulster County. There were some Green County people in it too, as well as Sullivan and Dutchess County. So it was an intense class. The students got six certificates when they completed it. And again, we started with 30. I think we finished with 21 because it was intense. It was 8 to 5 every day. But as well as it was hot too. So it was kind of intense for us instructors too. Putting on the gear, doing live burns in the July heat as well. Making sure everybody gets the proper amount of water and break in between. But it is rewarding, and I still are. Carm, you can ask my wife. We run into people that I've had in my classes years ago, and I don't remember their names, but they always come up to me and, oh, hi, Mr. Brueger, how you doing? And blah blah blah, and that's good stuff right there. That's good stuff.
That's a very cool legacy to have right there. That people will walk up to you and say stuff like that. I taught at our academy at different times, doing different types of disciplines for investigations, and it was pretty cool to be on the road working somewhere or doing something, and somebody would walk up and say, "Hey, you taught me how to do child fatality investigations in the academy." And like you said, it's a neat thing to be able to say that, and to be able to. I think that's kind of a badge of honor, honestly, that you're teaching people how to do the most important functions. I'm going to do a brief name drop here. One of my very good friends, one of my best friends, is a guy by the name of Joe Caputo, who retired from the troopers, who works for the Greene County Sheriff's Office, but he does arson investigations. He's still an active member of the fire department as well. And I said to him before he retired, I'm like, there's certain things that like those arson investigations, that takes years and years of accumulated knowledge and training for you to be able to know exactly how to conduct that investigation, that you're too young. And it's the same thing for you, Jimmy. You're too young to give that up. It's a knowledge base that nobody knows. And it's more than just education. It's experience and education through years and years of combined of those things that make you as schooled as you are. And I'm glad that you still teach it, because people need to know that stuff in the world today. And the young people don't, right? The young people don't get it until they get it.
A lot of them don't get it at all. I mean, and you could tell by the caliber of kids that we're getting, in the classes, coddling their cell phones, and that's one of the big rules. And you were instructor too. Cell phones, they in your car, in your pocket. I don't want to see it out, and a lot of them just don't get that, and as far and being respectful to one another, and
yep,
it's tough. It's tough sometimes.
Jimmy, you made a brief mention about training. You said there's diversity training and different types of training. So as a regular, let's call it a regular fireman within the city of Poughkeepsie, what other types of trainings, whether it be annually, monthly, or bi-yearly, what type of trainings would a regular fireman expect to get while being an active fireman, if that makes sense?
So we are required to have 100 hours of in-service training every year for career firefighters, and that covers a whole different list of topic areas that need to be covered every year, from water supply, tactics, hazmat, EMS, ventilation, and so on. So, and the list just goes on and on. And so our training bureau, before I left the last few years that I was there, I was really impressed with it, because in previous years we really hadn't been doing much training at all. But in the last few years before I retired, we were doing a lot of training and definitely checking the boxes that needed to be checked, and doing stuff that maybe you don't do a lot, but you need to refresh on it so you're at the top of your game. Like doing bailout training. Hopefully we never have to bail out of a window to escape a burning building. But if you do have to do it, you want to know how to do it and do it right. So you don't land on your head.
Yeah. So then
like that.
Yeah. So who then was responsible or is responsible for making sure that those 100 hours are obtained? Is it you as a lieutenant or a captain, or is it the individual fireman?
Nope, it's actually our training division. So we have a training officer
Okay.
that's scheduled the training and conducted a lot of the training. Sometimes he called upon other ones, because he knew I was an instructor and a lieutenant, and there's other people there that were officers and instructors as well. And he would tap his resources, which is the smart thing to do. That's what a good officer does. Everybody doesn't know everything, but you do know other people that maybe do know a topic area better than you. And and it seemed to always work out well that way. So,
Carm, you wanted to talk about the firehouse cooking life. Did you not?
Yeah, I know it's an interesting topic, and Jay's kind of
It
laughing
is.
at me.
It really is.
Because one of the things I like to do that it's always been a kind of a passion of mine is I like to cook and make different things for different people because I don't know, just for me, it's if you're barbecuing or grilling something or making a good pot of sauce for your family or your friends, there's I think obviously a great way to spend time together. In the firehouse, you guys do a lot of cooking because you live in the house during your downtime when you're not fighting fires. Tell us a little bit about your firehouse cooking and what your favorite part of that was.
yeah, so we try to get it straight before the next shift. Who's going to cook? Who's going to cook dinner? Usually we would do breakfast and dinner, and lunch was on your own. I usually didn't eat much of a lunch, only because of all the stuff that was always laying around the firehouse. There's always ice cream. There's always cookies. There's always donuts. People, and we don't know. A lot of stuff we don't buy. People just drop it off to us. So we try to get that straight ahead of time. Who's going to bring it in? And, and this is what I'm making. I'm making pasta, or making chicken parm, or we're going to cook on the grill, because all stations have grills outside too. And, I can't really say that I ever had a bad meal at the firehouse. Maybe some that I didn't particularly, care for it because it wasn't my cup of tea, but that's why I tried to always cook, so it always worked out for me.
Well, I'm assuming, I'm thinking, because I know when Carm and myself were down in Haverstraw and we had our meals together, for me, that's what kind of created the bonds between the guys who we worked with. You got to know them a little bit. You got to know them about their families, their children, and their life a little bit. I would assume that that's probably a similar thing within the firehouse, time that you bond together.
That camaraderie.
Oh yeah, that was probably the best times right there. Especially at the breakfast table, because the shift that we were leaving, those guys usually stayed and had coffee with us, and we BS with them. Obviously you get the shift report beforehand, and then afterwards it would just BS. How's your house? How's your kids? What's going on? Hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? We'd solve the problems of the world, and then. And then that previous shift would leave, and I would just have my guys there, and come dinner time, the same thing. We'd sit there and talk about current issues, current topics, anything going on in the firehouse or anything really, whatever came to mind. And it was always a good point of camaraderie too.
Yeah,
and,
that's awesome. That's very, very cool.
And that's where a lot of the things always came up too about. You asked me about guys doing second jobs, and you bring it up. Hey, I'm doing this addition, or I'm doing this in my backyard. Oh, really? You need a hand doing it? I can come over and help you for a couple hours. It's, and that was always a nice thing too. One of our guys on my crew, right after I got promoted, he fell in a parking lot and fractured his arm. So he was out, and he ended up really never coming back anyway. He just ended up retiring, but he did it in February, and come the summertime, I kind of found out that he had a big pile of mulch delivered, and he couldn't do it, his wife. So I talked to the captain and the lieutenant in the other station. I said, listen, why don't we get a bunch of guys up? I'll buy boxes of donuts or food for everybody. Let's go over there and take care of this for this guy, because, he's out on injury leave and he can't do it. So, I called the guy up the night before, and I said, hey, we're coming over, and we had like 10 guys show up, and we did it pretty quickly, and he was very happy. But that's the kind of things that we did for each other, cut each other's grass if the other guy got hurt, things like that. And I'm sure you guys probably had the same things going on with, I'm sure injury leave wasn't a stranger to your career either, right? Guys,
it's definitely something that happens in the police as well, but it's not, I think it's something that seems to be kind of falling by the wayside in many respects as well. I think Jay would agree with that.
That's actually that's exactly what I was going to bring up is that we especially earlier on in my career, we were extremely tight knit. And as time progressed, it seemed to be less and less. And we did have some really good relationships down in Rockland there for a while. But yeah, as time progresses, I think it's being thrown by the wayside for sure.
Yeah.
So Jimmy, what does the fire department's retirement look like? As far as what kind of time do you have to do, and is there a percentage of that? Like, how does that
So
all break down?
I was because I was hired back in the '90s. I was tier 2, which is unheard of now, right? Right? You guys are probably tier 2 as well.
Yep.
So now I thought either up to tier 6. So my overtime counted towards my towards my final average salary.
Okay.
Yep. The new guys, I believe, the tier 6s doesn't do that, although they are trying to push for concessions on that, and I hope they get it because they deserve it. But
I do too.
As of right now, it does not. So, once in a blue moon, we'll get a guy that'll leave and go down to a Westchester department because it's Westchester money, only because they're tier 6 and the overtime doesn't count them. So if they're getting a bigger paycheck, but I can also tell you the guys that go to the smaller departments in Westchester, don't see the type of action that we see in the city of Poughkeepsie, Yep. but it's
So
a
then
trade-off.
yeah, exactly. Is it that same 50% after 20 years, or is it a different increment? Because for state police, we at 20 years is 50%, and then each year up that we get a percentage of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Same?
It does go up.
Same.
Yes.
Okay. And it's a 20-year, correct? So 20 years.
So yes, it's 20 retirement, and then I ended up
Yep.
staying 27 and a half.
Yep.
I just you kind of know when it's when it's
Yeah.
time to hold them, when it's time to fold them, and I was getting older, and it's like try to stay in shape, but still putting the gear on multiple times a day, and
Yep.
climbing up all the stairs, and it was time to go. So
Yeah.
Would you have chosen a different career?
I probably if I didn't get laid off by IBM in the '90s, I had a really nice job there. I probably would have ended up, riding that out,
Yep.
because I was still one of the because I got hired in the '80s there. That we still had a retirement and everything, but which they have abolished since then. But I probably would end up staying. But once you get kicked in the nuts once, you don't give them a second chance, and that's when I decided to bail. And I think I made the right decision. It was a rewarding career, and I definitely loved it.
I have two quick questions. They're kind of related, but not really. Do you have any regrets regarding your career? Anything that you wish you would have done? Anything you wish you wouldn't have done? And then also, I can just add the second question to it. What was your favorite part about being a fireman within a 27 years of service you had?
As far as regrets go, I mean, I would just tell the younger guys on the job, because early in my career, I didn't take advantage of a lot of the training I should have, that was available through the state, and I should have accelerated that, and definitely, even if some of it was on my own, if I was getting leave for cause for it from work, I definitely should have started earlier with the training. I started kind of later, halfway through my career with the training, but I do have a pretty good training record now with a national search from the state, which is good. So, and I would advise anybody who takes it seriously to do just that. Take every possible training you can. You might find some areas that you excel in more than other areas, and just go after it. There's a lot of stuff available out there.
And regarding your favorite part of firefighting in your past 27 years, what do you think is your most rewarding or favorite part of it, you think?
My definitely, a lot of the guys that I worked with, they're like brothers to me now. Then they always will be. A lot of the public was great towards us. I can't begin to tell you how many times we did something for them, whether it was pump out their basement or put out their fire or do CPR on their family member. and they would be so thankful. They would show up at the firehouse, the next day or the next week with food and brownies, and we love you guys so much. Thank you for what you did for us, and blah blah blah. That was the rewarding part of it. That's what I really liked. And even
that's
till the
awesome.
day I retired, having little kids coming by, seeing the doors open when it was warm weather, and coming in and looking at the fire trucks, and you give them stickers and helmets, and they think it's the best thing in the world, and that that's why we always try to portray ourselves like that,
Absolutely. Very cool. Hey, so serious question. Okay, not really a serious question. How do you know if a fireman's in a bar?
Oh,
how do you know if a fireman's in the bar?
I feel like I've heard this one before.
Don't worry, he'll tell you.
That one was okay. That one wasn't bad.
That was good. Now, there's some guys, and you could tell the real buffs from the guys who have been on a job for a while and are not real buffs. They'll wear their hat. They got the shirt. It says fire department, blah, and they're going out, and they're wearing all the stuff that's fire. Me, I just have a little neck chain I wear, and it usually stays inside my shirt anyway. But you'll notice those are the guys that are the real buffs.
Jokes aside, though, it is something to brag about, and truly, I mean, no doubt what you folks do is absolutely amazing and impressive, and I don't know too many people or too many other professions where you fucking walk in a door where the place is engulfed in flames that can melt you, and you go and extinguish the fire. So I think you have a right to brag, and even the newbies have a right to brag. So
yeah, well, we like to break shit too, Carm. It's always fun taking a door down or doing stuff like that.
Yeah,
all right,
police like doing that too.
Hold on a second. Because you brought that up, I will say there's been a few times where we gone to car fires or accidents and stuff, and I've seen them kind of destroy things that, in my opinion, didn't need to be destroyed. But what do I know? Get out the jaws of life.
So have I.
Let's cut shit up at the joys of life.
Yeah. Let's see. This could be a training exercise.
Or not to tattletale on my brothers and sisters out there, or you go to a fire where it's been a one-room burnout in the back, and you go by it the next day and every window's taken out. Not necessary. You want to take the windows out by where the fire is. You don't need to take all the windows out. But we see that. We see quite a bit too. So one other story I'd like to tell you about, and I'm sure you guys already know the story, know a lot about the story, is John Falcone. Back in 2011, down by the Poughkeepsie train station. So I was working that day at the station on Clover Street, which is right by the train station. So I was on a ladder truck, though, but the engine company gets dispatched for a shooting. That's all they got. That's all we got was a shooting. So they go down there. They pull out. They go down there. I happen to walk outside, and I see all the patrol units going by, like a lot of them. I'm like, what's going on? We had no idea what was going on. So I walked down to the corner, and I told my partner, I said, listen, I don't know what's going on down there, but it looks like it's escalated to something more. I'm going to walk down to see if I can help. So I walked down. Just as I walked down, a patrol unit was pulling out. I didn't know it at the time, but the patrol unit was pulling out very swiftly with John in the back seat. He had been shot in the head. And I walked down a little further to see if I could help in any way. So a paramedic that I know very well came up to me and said, we got another one over here. And so he had previously shot his wife twice in the chest in the parking lot, like across from the train station, by the Route 9 ramp. She got found in the car, and then all the other hell broke loose with Falcone and the perp. She came up to me. She goes, I need your help. There's nobody else around. Can you help me? And I was like, okay. So I make a long story short, we got her in the back of the ambulance. I ended up doing CPR with the paramedic on her to Vassar Hospital, which wasn't that far away. But there was no vital signs on her or anything at the time. So then, all the police units were there. And then finally we figured out afterwards what actually had happened. And I was like, wow. I was just like, at that time they had brought him up to surgery. It wasn't sure yet what the status of him was, what his status was going to be. Everybody was just kind of on pins and needles at the time. I ended up getting a ride back to the station. I thought I was going to get yelled at by my captain because I just mobilized by myself and didn't tell anybody. I just went down there, but he was fine with it, and and then we found out later that he had passed. So that was a tough day. That was a tough day for everybody. And there was and it's funny because I finally got a ride back from Vassar Hospital because I forgot my radio too, so I had to use my cell phone to call headquarters to get a ride back. But it was probably a good hour and a half later that there were still police units from everywhere. A lot of K-Troop guys showing up, and the support was amazing.
Yeah.
Crazy. Jimmy, it was actually that's weird that you bring that up. I was going to ask you first of all, and second of all, I remember it pretty well. I actually went to his funeral, and it was one of the ones. I mean, obviously every funeral sucks, but for some reason, I remember being there and the services. I had a hard time, keeping it together because of that situation, and I can't imagine being as involved as you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough day for everybody. The city, the police, fire, everybody, but especially the police. That was really a tough day.
Yeah, Detective John Falcone was murdered by a guy. For those who don't know the story, he was murdered by a guy that had just been arrested up here in Greene County, actually, by the state police in Greene County.
Yes,
a judge let him go. A judge let him go, as I understand it, and he proceeded to go down to Poughkeepsie and do what he did. So we that's a personal story to you specifically, and thank you for what you did, and may Detective Falcone's memory be eternal, and his family find strength. So
he actually lived here in Milton too, where we live.
Wow.
Down by the river.
Really?
Yeah.
And you Jimmy, you said that was 2011?
It was February of 2011,
yeah. I was working at the state police barracks in Greene County when that happened, and we had literally just one of my coworkers had just arrested him when that happened, and that was close to home for a lot of people, and horribly tragic story all around. So
yeah,
yes,
yeah. Let's switch topics before we get too depressing. And like you said, it's we think about his family for sure. Did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up, Carm, or any other questions?
I think I'm good. I think we covered a lot. I think we got to discover a firefighter's life. What do you got to say?
I will tell you this much. Within the 20 episodes we have so far, this is this has been the most educational for me, and I'm deeply appreciative of it. I thank you so much for coming on, Jimmy. I know we had some errors and some issues getting on here, but it was well worth the wait, and I appreciate your time for sure. Is there any last things that you wanted to say, or comments, or things that you want to be made aware of?
No, the only thing I say is I have watched some of your podcasts, and I think you guys are getting out there some important messages, to everybody on the job. So
yeah, thank you.
A lot of people don't know what you guys do or what we do. They just don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why we do it. We want to get that message out. They don't know what's
going on behind the scenes. They don't see a lot of this stuff or hear about it. So
yeah, that's definitely one of our goals, is to let everybody, as many people as possible, know not only what we and you guys and any of the first responders go to, but some of the things that you wouldn't normally know. Like you gave us so much of an insight to what a fireman goes through, that this is going to be very valuable. And once again, thank you.
You're welcome.
So very awesome.
Thank you, Jimmy, for coming on. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your service and for what you did for the community.
Yes,
and you continue to do too.
Yeah. Thank you for your education and all that. So
Jay, do you
want
to talk about the stickers?
I don't have them with me. We could talk about them. I forgot to bring them though.
Yeah, we have new stickers. Yeah, we got to do the next one.
We'll do it next time. Yeah, we'll talk about stickers next time. We appreciate everybody listening. Oh, you got a mug. Look at that. Oh, shit. Thank you.
I think my wife was going to make some more for you, Carm.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. Tell her we said
so thank you, everybody that subscribes, listens. Please share, follow, like, comment, tell us we're assholes, whatever you want. Jimmy, once again, we appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.